Welcome to Radio Podcast, where stories come alive. In each episode, we journey through the fascinating worlds of biographies, documentaries, historical tales, and mythological legends. And sometimes we dive into the darker side with gripping crime stories. You can listen to Radio Podcast on all your favorite platforms. If you enjoy watching, our episodes are available as videos on YouTube. Prefer audio? You can find us on Castbox, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. No matter where you are or what you're doing, we've got the perfect story for you. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Let's begin today's adventure. Whispers of the Forsaken House. A cold wind rustled through the dry trees of the forest, carrying with it the sound of crackling leaves on the ground. The sky was starless, and the only light came from a faint moon struggling to shine through thick, dark clouds. In this eerie silence, an old house stood deep within the forest, an abandoned house that had been uninhabited for years. Its crumbling walls and broken roof were a testament to the passage of time and neglect. Rumor had it that this house had once been the scene of a gruesome crime, and since then, no one dared to go near it. On this cold, dark night, a woman named Sarah was approaching the house. She was a young, curious journalist, determined to uncover the truth behind the old tale associated with the place. The story she had heard had captivated her mind, and she was determined to get to the bottom of it. Locals claimed the house was cursed, that anyone who entered never returned. But Sarah didn't believe in legends. She wanted to challenge these myths by uncovering the truth. As she approached the house, she shone her flashlight on its weathered walls. The creaking sound of the old door swaying with the breeze made her uneasy, but she refused to let fear control her. She reached out and carefully pushed the door open. It creaked slowly, revealing the darkness inside, which seemed to beckon her to enter. Sarah stepped inside, immediately met by the smell of dampness and mold. The interior was filled with an unsettling silence and darkness. She turned on her flashlight and surveyed the surroundings. The living room was cluttered with old, broken furniture, worn wooden chairs, a rusted, dormant fireplace, and a dilapidated piano whose keys had warped over time. Sarah's mind wandered to the story she had heard. Years ago, a family had lived in this house. A family that, one fateful night, had been brutally murdered. No one knew exactly what had happened, only that after that night, the house was abandoned and became the subject of many rumors and legends. As Sarah looked at the house's walls, she sensed that something was off. It felt as though she was being watched, but she tried to dismiss the feeling and continued her exploration. With each step she took, the creaking of the wooden floorboards beneath her feet grew louder. She peered into other rooms, finding traces of the past inhabitants' lives. But what caught her attention most was a locked door at the end of a hallway. Sarah approached the locked door, inspecting it closely. The door was made of sturdy, weathered wood with an old lock securing it. She thought this door might hold a clue to the house's dark history. She tried to open the lock but couldn't. Determined, she began searching the rooms for a key, but found nothing. Then, she heard a faint, indistinct noise coming from behind the door. She hesitated for a moment before pressing her ear against it, trying to make out the sound. It resembled whispers, barely audible. Her heart started to race, and she felt that something far more sinister than she had imagined was lurking in the house. Sarah decided she had to open the door at all costs. She went to the kitchen and found a small, rusty axe. With this tool, she returned to the door and began striking the lock. Each blow made her heart pound faster, and the whispers grew louder and clearer. After several hard hits, the lock broke, and the door slowly creaked open. Behind the door was a small room that appeared untouched for years. The walls were covered in old, tattered wallpaper, and in one corner stood a simple, dusty bed. But what drew Sarah's attention most was an old wooden chest in the middle of the room. Sarah cautiously approached the chest. Her hands trembled as she opened it, driven by curiosity and fear. Inside, she found photos, letters, and personal belongings of the family that once lived in the house. But what terrified her were some of the photos. Faces that were distorted and blurred, not quite human, with hollow, black eyes and eerie, twisted smiles. As Sarah stared at the photos, a chill ran down her spine. The air in the room seemed to grow colder, and the whispers returned, this time louder and seemingly coming from within the chest itself. Panic set in, and she quickly slammed the chest shut, stumbling backward. But something about this room filled her with an overwhelming sense of dread, as though the very walls were urging her to leave. Sarah hurried out of the room and back into the main hallway. She could no longer shake the feeling that something was following her. The whispers now echoed through the house, and shadowy figures seemed to move in the corners of her vision. She tried to remain calm and find a way out, but every door and window she tried was inexplicably locked. Desperation set in. Suddenly, she felt a cold, icy touch on her shoulder. She turned around in horror to see a dark, faceless figure with empty black eyes staring back at her. The figure moved toward her slowly, with the same eerie whispers coming from its mouth. Sarah screamed and ran to the living room, desperately searching for something to defend herself with. But all she could find was the old piano, which inexplicably began to play on its own, filling the room with haunting, discordant notes. The dark figure drew closer, and the room seemed to close in around her, the walls almost pulsating with malevolent energy. Sarah, overwhelmed by terror, backed into a corner of the living room. The dark figure was nearly upon her, and the whispers had reached a deafening pitch, filling her mind with fear and confusion. It seemed there was no escape, but instead of fleeing, she realized she had only one option left: to face the terror head-on. With every ounce of courage she could muster, Sarah stared directly into the figure's hollow eyes and shouted, "What do you want?" For a moment, everything stopped. The whispers ceased, and a heavy silence filled the room. The dark figure paused, as if taken aback. Then, slowly, the figure began to change, its form shifting into something more human, though still unnervingly distorted. It was as if the shadows themselves were revealing a glimpse of a tortured soul. Sarah realized that this figure might be an echo of the pain and suffering that once took place in the house, a remnant of the past that had never been laid to rest. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward and said, "I'm here to uncover the truth. If there's pain, let me understand it." The figure hesitated, and then, as if understanding her words, it began to fade away, dissolving into the darkness from which it had emerged. The whispers ceased entirely, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. Sarah was left standing alone in the silent room, the house now devoid of the malevolent presence that had haunted it. Breathing heavily, Sarah slowly made her way out of the house, her mind racing with the experience she had just endured. She knew she had uncovered something far beyond her expectations, something that could never be fully explained by logic or reason. As she stepped into the cold night air, she vowed to tell the world the story of this house, even though she knew that the fear she had faced would never fully leave her.